Hey guys, this is Jamie. So today we're gonna be talking about another video on alpha males, but I really wanted to sort of highlight the fact that it's kind of between being in crossfire. So we have the Andrew Tates of the world, which kind of like say like you have to be alpha, you have to be pretty much rude to women, you have to do this, you have to be an asshole, and etc. And then you also have the other side, which is all masculinity is toxic, decline masculinity, and look at it from a feminist perspective. And in general, it just causes a massive mess. So you pretty much either have like embrace this alpha masculinity versus embrace like something that you shouldn't be embracing. So, in the end, we don't really have a sort of healthy view on masculinity as a whole. And I know you're probably thinking, if you're new to this channel, like, well, what am I gonna learn from you? Well, maybe you might learn something. I don't know. It's up to you to learn or not. So, yeah, so what I wanted to talk about is that obviously masculinity is a concept which is very, very diverse. There are many ways to express masculinity, just like there are many ways to express femininity. And I think it also depends on every person on how they feel specifically about masculinity, how they feel about femininity. But obviously, as a trans man and as a man, and talking about masculinity, I will be talking about masculinity. So I really, I do feel like specifically like when you go into trans circles, there's a lot sort of like questions like what is masculinity, how to not make it toxic. I also have like quite a few friends or people who I don't talk to as much because I feel like their perception of masculinity is a bit too feminism skewed and sort of like I'm not trying to call anyone out, but I do feel like it's a bit too masculinity is bad and on the other hand there's the Andrew Tates who are like, oh yeah, you should be alpha, you need to show everyone who's boss. And I just feel like obviously Andrew Tate with his misogyny is obviously worse, but I don't want to say that people who think their masculinity is a bad thing or that men are the problem are sort of like the right people to listen to either. So, and I was going through Twitter, and indeed it dawned on me that there is sort of like no middle, which is like the sort of like the right amount of thinking for masculinity or the right definition according to me, or because there's nothing wrong with being male, there's nothing wrong with being a man, there's nothing wrong with masculinity. But the problem is like obviously we need to have this discussion where a lot of young men are turning to these Andrew Tates because, well, what does feminism have to offer them when it's literally you're the bad person, you did this, women are oppressed, and feminism doesn't have the discussion for men or it doesn't address men's issues. And it's interesting because I actually wanted to talk about feminism in another video, but just to brush upon it just a teensy bit, feminism these days is mostly turfy territory with like what's a woman and a lot of turf discussions. And even when it comes to women's issues, I feel like feminism doesn't discuss like abortion as much as it should, for instance. But moving on from feminism and modern feminism, I really think it's really impossible for someone to find even the right ground, because when you're growing up, obviously you want to see yourself represented. So you see people who are obviously telling you you're bad, like you're the problem. And then there's another dude who's like, no, 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 you're good, you're good. You just have to be more alpha and everything. So obviously, you don't feel welcome by the feminists. So obviously, of course, the young men will be roped in by the Andrew Tates of the world and whatever. And it also happens, like, obviously, in my previous video, I talked about trans men and, like, sort of that there is a sort of sense of being an alpha male when you're trans. And obviously, even among trans men, there is sort of like this alpha desire, like to prove that you're more manly than the other. And I really don't know if it's because we just have this desire, like, to outdo ourselves, to because we suffer from so much internalized transphobia that we have to prove to ourselves to fight our dysphoria that we are manly enough. And sometimes that can obviously get into our heads, and we need to sort of try to find peace with it and how to fight it. Again, peace with it, because sometimes it's just a waiting game, specifically when it comes to dysphoria, like when you're waiting for top surgery, bottom surgery, histo, testosterone, anything like that, and it's a massive waiting game. So you need to kind of keep yourself cool until you get all the procedures sort of in place, or until you get to a place where it's easier for you to be yourself and to look at yourself in the mirror and understand that you're going through the process, you're going through transition. Obviously, I'm saying this with sort of more of my experience in mind, because I wanted to go on HRT, I wanted all the surgeries and etc. But going back, I am very even surprised that this was even raised as a subject, because I really feel like people don't care about men's well-being as much as they should. And there is some sort of positivity among trans men, but there's very little when it comes to actual just cis dudes. And that is a problem, factually. And yes, obviously there's gonna be people who are gonna say, yeah, but what do cis dudes face, like, which can be a problem? Like, sure, they may not be, like, oppressed in the oppression Olympics, if that's what we're going for. But at the same time, everyone deserves to have their positivity. Why shouldn't there be something like, hey dude, you're doing great, I don't know, keep it up? Like, just simple encouraging messages. They don't necessarily have to be like, do 10 push-ups and then you're an alpha. And in general, there shouldn't be any sort of alpha concepts. I think we've tainted that word to such a deep extent. And in general, we shouldn't have this competition of like, who's the better man in general. I mean, we just need to pick each other up. It's somewhat similar to what we had before, when like there was active discussion about like women, and like that we put women against each other, but right now we're putting men against each other and no one's really talking about it. On the opposite, everyone's kind of like, I'm more alpha, you're more alpha, I should be more alpha, then there's the sigma males, I don't know. In general, it's all very messy, and I really think we should just advocate for mental health at this point. So yeah, I also wanted to say, like, when I look at certain like breadtube videos, or like, for instance, I really enjoy Noah Samson's content, and he always says, like, he does bring valid points that indeed we need to raise awareness to get all those dudes who look at like really weird, creepy alpha males and direct them towards something. He always says men's lib. I don't like men's lib. I still feel like it's too much from a feminist perspective, and it feels very alienating, in my opinion. Um, I used to see some good posts on men's rights, but right now it's like an incel fest, and it's not good at all. It's literally like an Andrew Tate incel hive, so I do not recommend it either. And I've unsubscribed from it, even like from the point of view that I don't even want to see it in a comic light. Which I did keep it for a long while to see like what's happening and etc. Yeah, that's not a good scene. So I don't even know what to recommend. Like I agree with Noah that indeed we need to like sort of point at certain like positive things, like who to follow for motivation, but I can't really think of anyone from the top of my head. Like obviously, um you need to see someone who you relate to, who you feel is like a role model. And sometimes like when I feel down, I like usually it's like when I travel or like when I'm commuting, I just put on the Trixie and Katya podcast and I'm like, yes, absolutely, I relate to these cross dressers. And yeah, so it can be something as inspiring as two drag queens for like her. So it is. So what I'm trying to say is, you need to find your own sort of middle ground because there isn't a sort of clear one right now, sadly. And yeah, obviously keep in mind that I'm a gay guy. I enjoy the drag scene. I'm very sort of into makeup and all those things. So obviously, I do enjoy hearing cross dressers and drag queens talk about their experiences. So yeah, so I want to say thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please share. I would really appreciate it. Give it a like, subscribe. It helps me more than it helps you. And thank you very much.